The sky had lost its color. It was not gray, nor silver, nor white. It was not just a wide, empty dome pressing down on the earth. The wind howled low and mean, slashing sideways through the forest, as if trying to chase away anything that still dared to breathe. Every branch bent in surrender, every leaf gone, every bird silent. And in the middle of this cruel storm, barely visible under the waves of falling snow, two tiny figures staggered forward. They had no business being there, no reason to be alone in the forest, no hope of survival. And yet they moved, one pressing forward through the drifts, the other following with every ounce of strength left. Axel was only 12 weeks old. His paws were too small, his legs too thin. But his instincts, those ancient codes passed down through blood and bone, screamed louder than the storm. His job was simple: keep moving. And don't let her fall behind Freya. His sister was smaller, lighter. She wasn't weak, but the cold hit her differently. She stumbled more often now. Her breath came in shallow, soft puffs that faded too quickly in the air. Axel kept glancing back, ears twitching, waiting for the sound of her paws crunching behind him. Every time it paused, he stopped. Every time it slowed, he backed up and nudged her forward again. They didn't know where they were going. Only that back meant death. Back was the cabin. Back was where it started. They had been born in warmth once, in a place where the fireplace crackled and the humans laughed. Their mother, Riva, had curled round them like a fortress of fur and breath. Riva was strength. Riva was safety. Riva had known how to calm storms with nothing but her heartbeat. But Riva was gone now. The night the humans vanished, the world changed. There had been shouting, a truck, the sound of a door slamming hard enough to make Freya whimper. Then the sound of silence, long and bitter. Riva had waited, then barked, then howled, then dug at the door, trying to chase the truck that never came back. For 3 days, she fought to keep them fed. For 3 days, she ignored her own hunger. And then she laid down beside them one last time, placed her muzzle on Axel's shoulder, and didn't rise again. Axel remembered that. He remembered the weight of her stillness, the absence of warmth. He remembered curling around Freya as she cried, his small body trembling not from the cold, but from understanding. They couldn't stay. Axel had pushed open the broken side door with his shoulder. Snow rushed in like a monster, hissing and curling around their paws. Freya hesitated. Axel barked soft but firm, and led the way. Now they were miles from that broken cabin. The world was nothing but white and wind, and still they moved. Until Freya collapsed. Axel didn't hear her fall. He felt it. He turned and found her lying half buried, her head on her paws, her breath barely lifting the snow. He ran back and whimpered, nudging her with his nose. She didn't rise. He barked louder this time. No movement. Panic set in. Not fear, panic. Axel had never known such a thing until now. It was a strange, wild thing. It made him bark again and again, digging frantically around her with his paws. He pressed his face into hers, willing her to move. And finally her eye twitched. Alive. Still alive. Axel knew then what he had to do. He didn't think about it. He didn't weigh options. He simply lay down across her, spreading his small body over hers, curling against her side, shielding her from the biting wind. His fur was wet, his body ached, his ears burned from the cold. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that she stayed warm. Darkness fell. The storm raged louder. Axel didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every time his eyes drifted shut, he jolted awake, afraid that if he slept too deeply, she'd stop breathing beneath him. Hours passed. Somewhere nearby, a branch cracked under the weight of ice. A fox padded silently past the drift, unnoticed by the frozen figures. The forest kept its cruel silence. And then, as if summoned by something greater than chance, footsteps. Heavy ones. Human ones. Emil was a retired ranger. He lived off-grid alone, not far from the cabin the pups had fled. The storm had pushed him out that morning to check his snare lines, though his instincts told him he wasn't really looking for traps. Something had tugged at him, a strange pull he couldn't explain. When he saw the mound of snow beside the fallen pine, he almost passed it, but something, some part of him that had spent a lifetime reading forests, stopped him cold. He knelt, brushed away the snow, and saw an ear, then fur, then 2 frozen bodies. "Jesus," he whispered. He pulled them free gently, not expecting life, but as he cradled them in his arms, he felt it, a tremble, a weak, desperate flutter against his chest. Alive, he ran. Through the snow, across the ridge, back to his cabin. There he lit the fire with shaking hands. He wrapped them in blankets. He placed warm compresses against their paws and ears. Freya stirred first, blinking slowly. Axel didn't move for a long time. His breathing was shallow, his body cold to the core. But Emil didn't stop. He fed them with an eyedropper. He whispered to them. He didn't leave their side for 2 days. And then Axel opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Freya curled beside him, breathing steady and warm. He sighed and fell asleep again. They stayed with Emil. Weeks passed. The snow melted. Spring crept in quietly, cautious of disturbing what winter had broken. Emil named him Axel Freya after characters in an Old Norse legend. Heroes. Survivors. Axel's limp never healed fully. One leg would always drag a little, but his eyes burned with something stronger than pain. Something ancient. Purpose. He never let Freya wander far. If she chased a bird too far into the trees, Axel barked until she returned. If she whined at night, he pressed against her until she slept again. Emil watched it all in silence, amazed. He'd lived alone for so long, he'd forgotten what love looked like. But Axel reminded him. Their story, once shared with a local rescue group, exploded across the internet. Photos of Axel shielding Freya in the snow were shared millions of times. People wept. Strangers sent gifts. Letters arrived from children who called Axel a hero, a symbol, a reminder that loyalty still existed in the world. One letter simply read, "When everything was cold, you stayed warm." Years passed. Axel grew into a powerful, slow-moving sentinel. Freya remained playful but wiser now. They lived together in peace. They had food, a home, a man who loved them. But the forest never forgot. One winter, Emil slower, grayer. His breath came harder. Axel stayed at his feet always. Freya became quiet. When the end came, it was gentle. Emil died in his sleep, a hand resting on Axel's head. The rescue team found the dog still there, silent, still. Freya was adopted by a family who had followed their story from the beginning. She adjusted quickly. She played with the children, slept on soft couches, and ran through warm fields. But Axel was tired. His body had given everything long ago in that storm. He lived just long enough to see Freya safe. Then, on a quiet morning, he curled beside her one last time, rested his head against her shoulder, and closed his eyes. They buried him beneath a pine tree overlooking the old trail. The stone reed, he shielded her from the storm. He taught us all how to love. And when the snow falls now, softly and slow, it is said that you can still see paw prints near that tree. 2 sets, side by side, because love like that doesn't fade. It lives on in every storm, in every shield, in every heart that refuses to let go. Years later, the story still echoed, not just in the hearts of those who had read it or wept watching the pictures go viral, but in the small acts of quiet love that happen every single day between dogs and humans, between brothers and sisters, protectors and survivors. Freya lived the rest of her days surrounded by warmth. She grew older, slower, wiser. But even as her muzzle grayed and her legs lost their spring, her spirit stayed bright. She never forgot Axel. Not for a moment. Not even as the world moved forward and the people around her aged and changed. Every winter, when the snow began to fall, she would sit by the window and stare out toward the woods. Her ears would twitch at the sound of wind through the trees, and her eyes would narrow, as if searching for a shadow moving between the pines, as if waiting. One winter morning, long after Axel's grave had grown soft with moss and the carved stone had become a local legend, Freya walked outside alone. The snow had returned, soft, white, gentle this time, not cruel like before. She walked slowly down the familiar trail, past the curve where Emil used to split firewood, past the old bench built by a stranger who once read their story. She paused at the clearing, her breath steady, her tail swaying low. There was his tree. She lay down beside his grave, curled up like she had so many years ago, her nose resting against the earth that held him. And for the first time in all those winters, she didn't feel cold. She felt full, whole. Because in the end, she had lived a life made possible by one act of unshakable love. When her family found her later, she was peaceful, her eyes closed, her body still. A soft snowfall blanketed her, as if nature itself had come to lay one final blanket over its most faithful child. They buried her beside Axel, 2 stones, side by side, one for the shield, one for the life he saved. Visitors come every year to see the graves under the pine tree. Some leave flowers, others leave small toys, sticks, or scraps of red cloth tied in the shape of hearts. A few simply sit in silence, hands resting on their dogs' heads, whispering thanks to two pups they never met, but will never forget. And when the wind moves just right through the trees, and the snow begins to fall gently on the earth, some say you can still see them. Two young puppies curled together in the snow, one shielding, one sleeping, both held in a moment that defied the storm.